Okay, Bob. Well, here we
Yeah,
are, just you and me.
just the two of us.
Let's talk about the movie we both watched this week, huh?
Yeah, let's
World
do it.
War Z. Do you have a mini review for us?
I do. I do. So much Mad Men. Okay, I'm in World War Z mode now. Okay, so this is what I gave World War Z. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, and I said it's enjoyable enough with good performances, but it wasn't sure which themes it wanted to explore, touching many and then abandoning most. Compared to how humanity is usually explored in zombie movies, this watered down approach felt a bit hollow. Yeah,
Mmm.
so this is one of those mixed reviews. Like on the surface, there was nothing bad about this movie. It felt great. It was enjoyable. Brad Pitt delivers. It's a zombie movie. It's kind of actiony. It has family and people you would care about. It has all the pieces for a great, as for a great formula for a great action summer movie. But then overall, you just walk away thinking, that was all right. But I can't put my finger on it. But I'm not wowed. What did you think?
Great question. Just quickly, should have done this at the beginning, but just to set everyone's table in case they forget or haven't seen it yet. Just a short intro. World War Z. United Nations employed Jerry Lane traverses the world in a race against time to stop the zombie pandemic that is toppling armies and governments and threatening to destroy humanity itself. Stars Brad Pitt. You mentioned that with Mireille Enos, Daniela Cartej, and others. Directed by Mark Forster, who did Quantum of Solace, Monsters Ball, and a bunch of others. Screenplay by like 4 people based on a book by Max Brooks. So that's all our chess pieces on the board here. What did I think? Well, let me give you my mini review, Bob. Um, 3.5 stars out of 5, just
Okay.
like you.
Hmm.
But here's what I said. There's very little I didn't like about this movie. Movie
Mhm.
star leading man, good thrills, plausible story for a zombie flick, and most of all, a healthy restraint. Of course, it is a zombie movie. There's only so much praise I can give it. Even though we both gave this 3.5 stars, Bob, I feel like I liked it more than you did.
Does it
I,
come across that way? Because I wasn't sure. It was almost on the line for me. It could have been a four almost. Which is maybe weird with my tone because it probably comes across as I'm pointing out the negatives, and it's closer to a three.
well, yeah. We talked about Man of Steel last week, which I just spent a lot of the movie just being annoyed, and I spent none of this movie being annoyed. I just enjoyed it. I really like I say, I liked Brad Pitt, his charisma, his movie starness. It's just nice to watch that. Um, Liked Mireille Enos as a mom. It was fun to see her in like the third very different role of the things I know her from, like The Killing and Big Love. That was really fun. Wish actually she might have been a bigger part of it, if anything.
Right.
And especially, I loved that it kept its indulgences under control. We didn't have the half-hour buildings blowing up montage like we did in Man of Steel or things like that. It seemed appropriate for what I wanted to watch, and it was under 2 hours. Another nice box to check for a movie I liked, and I just walked out thinking I liked that. The only reason it started coming down for me was when I thought, am I going to recommend this to everyone I see? It's like, well, it is a zombie movie, and I don't know. Am I going to try to bring my wife to this? Well, whatever. If she wants to see a movie this weekend, maybe we'll go see this one. So just, it sort of cuts a star off right at the very beginning. And so then the
Right.
highest it could get is 4, and then I gave it like a 3.5 because I liked it a lot for what it was.
Well, now this is unfair because you're leaving me with the burden of pointing out all the stuff you just did a great overview of all the positive, and I don't disagree with any of it. But let me just highlight a few of the negatives.
All right.
So, first of all, his relationship with his wife and his kids, and I'm going to try to keep this spoiler free, but we're going to talk a little bit about it. It's kind of written out of the movie. So it starts out like the movie's kind of has 3 acts. The first act is his wife and his kids getting him away from the catastrophe that's happening all around. We don't know that necessarily that it's zombies, but we figured out quickly enough. Um, so you feel like, oh, they're a big part of the story, and then they just sort of get written out. They get safe, sort of, and then he's on his own for the second third of the movie. And in this scene, then he starts randomly needing to work with different groups of people, and he goes down all these false leads. And every time he goes somewhere, there's like a new character, and if you blink, you might have forgotten that Matthew Fox was actually in this movie, who's kind of an A-list star, and he gets like 5 minutes of
Whoa.
screen time.
A-list?
Okay, a beat. What? Matthew
Okay.
Fox? He's been a lead in a few movies and had
Such
his
as.
that one. Okay,
Oh, you just proved it. I
okay,
win.
fine. Okay. So maybe not A-list, but to have Matthew Fox as like a cameo throwaway role that you didn't even remember who he was because he doesn't even get a real name. If you look him up on IMDb, it's like military dude, or like he doesn't even get a name. Um, but he's like a pivotal character for like you think that now. Oh, so this is the new family replacement character. They're going to work together. No. That's just for like 5 minutes. That's a false lead. It's going to go somewhere else. And then he meets up with another woman who ends up being important to the story randomly because you don't know why. He just has to take her with him.
Hmm.
Um, and then she's not the important person as the secondary character. Like it's just Brad Pitt hopscotching around the globe, which I guess is refreshing in one sense because it's a new take on a story that usually is pinned around a set of characters. But really, if you don't like Brad Pitt, stay away from this movie. I happen to be fine with him. He's good, but like nobody else gets enough screen time to be developed, and even Brad Pitt for all the screen time he gets, it's still not really about him. So that's a long-winded criticism, but I felt it was a little choppy on where they were trying to go with it in that way.
Those are all fair points. I mean, that's why this isn't a movie that I think is going to be an Oscar movie or anything, and that's sort
Right.
of all wrapped up for me and why I just cut a star off right at the very top for the potential of this movie. But I guess I felt just relieved after having seen Man of Steel, and even after having seen Star Trek, to be quite honest.
What? I enjoyed Star Trek a lot more than this. For one, Star Trek had a lot more comic relief, and the character ensemble cast was much better put together.
Well, let me explain what I mean.
Okay.
I meant to say, I think I did say that I felt relieved in that it just wasn't explosions, huge destruction of the Earth. I mean, there was some destruction of the Earth, obviously, here, but I just felt like it didn't go off on that for its own sake, not destruction for destruction's sake. Um,
But
anyway.
it did have. I guess that's true compared to like Man of Steel and Iron Man and all these other movies. It did have a little bit of excessiveness, and I saw in your show notes actually. We might disagree on this point. Um, you'd mentioned that you thought it was pretty cool that the zombies would pile up into big piles and be able to scale walls and that sort of thing. It was visually stimulating anyway.
Hmm.
Um, I have to be honest and say and I think they even show some of that in the previews. I found that kind of annoying because the whole premise of zombies, and this is going to be like my nerd moment where I'm like, well, thing is, the whole premise of zombies is that they're not organized. They just run towards sound. That's the only reason you see them in big groups together, and they're not strategic and powerful in a collective mind sort of way. It's just so happens that they all are attracted to the same thing, but they're all dead people just running around. And so, if you think about it, how in the world do hundreds and thousands of people climb all over each other to make a human wall to scale a wall? Like, it just doesn't. That would require actual skill and constructive thinking. It just wouldn't happen organically.
I think you're a little. I don't think the zombie mythology is as canonical and set in stone as you're making it sound like. But
Okay.
yeah, you have a good point. I mean, it's not necessarily understandable how even these particular zombies could just figure out a way to do that. I did think it looked cool, though.
It did look cool. Grant you that.
Um, all right. So I thought the story was actually pretty good. Though you're right as far as keeping characters that we cared about going throughout the whole thing. Maybe it was lacking a little bit, but I thought it was sort of intelligent. I didn't think it was too predictable or too much of a cliche, and it
hmm
kept my attention. Had some good thrills and some good suspense. I appreciated the story.
Yeah, the story was good. It was very sanitized, though. I felt like what you call a healthy restraint and was a positive thing. The Superman effect, notwithstanding, because I agree with you. On the flip side, this was like the most. This was the zombie movie with the least blood I've ever seen.
Well, it was PG-13, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was very deliberately PG-13 because there were so many scenes where the cutaways and anything they showed would be just short of showing anything. So maybe that's good for for once to have a zombie movie that you can take your family to. I don't know.
So we mentioned the visual effects a little bit. What did you think overall? I guess so. Well, from what I've piecing together from what you've just said is um, the 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 wall scaling scene was visually fine enough, even if you had other problems with it, and you thought that they maybe didn't do as much as you might have liked as far as showing us gore or cool stuff that you expect in a zombie movie.
Right, or just humanity turning on each other. Or there's a scene at the very beginning where they have to go into a pharmacy or a grocery store and get some food, and that's the only glimpse of where you see, like, oh my gosh, what happens in a chaotic environment when people are just grabbing things off the shelf. Then they dismiss that theme very quickly, and it's not the point of the movie anymore. And there's stuff like that that's like more involved in zombie movies typically, and you didn't get any of that. This is more about Brad Pitt trying to save the world by jumping around to different countries.
All right. So yeah, overall, I like I said, I liked it. It's been one of the most, I'm gonna say, refreshing blockbuster movie experiences I've had this summer. I'm not usually a blockbuster kind of guy, but I've been getting back into it for this show, and
Right.
it's one of the ones that I was the least annoyed about. That's how I'm gonna put it. 3.5 stars for me.
Fair enough. 3.5 for me. On the flip side, I was a little annoyed, but I found it very enjoyable. Oh, we didn't do buzz. Did you get any buzz on your review?
Oh, I got a little bit. So a friend of mine said that he liked it, and he compared it again to Man of Steel, which seems pretty obvious since Man of Steel comes out.
Right.
Anyway, he says Brad Pitt does an excellent job overall. Unlike Man of Steel, which is a terrible movie by any standard, which I happen to agree with. I don't think you would go quite that far. Then I thought it was funny, just the little comedy threw in about Superman. So, it's only worth Superman's good looks. I just wish he would have opted for a career in porn instead. Haha.
That's nice.
That was my buzz. How about you?
I had one friend say, I thought it was a zombie movie with a ton of heart, really enjoyed it. I agreed that they tried to cram too much into it, but what movie doesn't do that these days? And then I sort of gave a rebuttal saying, well, it's not that it was cramming stuff in because it was trying to be ambitious. It was more cramming stuff in because it didn't know what it wanted, and there's a difference there. So, and then I got another comment. Basically like, yeah, it's too bad since the exploration of humanity dealing with zombies was basically the whole point of the novel. So I got your typical, the book was much better than the movie, which is fine, because it probably was, because the movie was pretty surface level on exploring humanity, and if that was the
Sure.
point of the book,
Sure.
then we missed out. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's about it.
All right. 3.5 is our average. That's a recommendation. Go see it if you're looking
Yeah,
for something to see.
it's all right. Yeah.